Good morning. This is my morning brief video to kick off the new week here. So one thing that you really got to look out for this morning. Oh yeah, be sure and like my video if you like it. So retweet me on Gumby9662C on Twitter if you get a chance. And any comments below are appreciated. So what we really got to look at here, guys, if you type in just ES or NQ into your to look at your futures for S&Ps and that NASDAQ this morning, you can see that there's a big gap up this morning. We have a contract row happening this morning on Thinkorswim. Okay, so heads up on that. Our charts are updating for the March contracts. Okay, so we are getting a gap up on the ES futures this morning. If you go over here and look at the trade grid right here, we actually technically still have 4 days into the December contracts. So a large amount of the open contracts are likely to finish rolling out. Most of them have already rolled out from last week. That row should continue in today's session. So heads up on that. We got 4 days left in those contracts, but we do have a big gap up. If you want to see, if you're doing your charting and stuff, and you want to see comparable charts, okay, uh, you have to type in the Z24s. Right now, if you type in ES, it's automatically going to the H25s. Okay. Now, knowing that the H25s are now active, this is important to note because we're at all-time highs on ESs and NQs. So technically, the new contracts are putting us in territory that has no historical resistance against it. That's giving an additional edge to the bulls. So the current H25s now, really good chance if you put a regression line on uh, this low here. Let me see here how I do that. 1 second here. Yeah, okay. So let me activate it real quick. Yeah. So if you connect this low and this low on your regression line, that is actually giving you a new trend up here to this new trend line. And that's putting you up in the 61.53, 55 area for that trend line now. So our primary thesis on the new contracts, we should be looking for 61.50, 61.55 today on the new ES contracts. Okay, if you go on the trade, uh, those are ES 24s here. Let's see here. Okay, so the uh, option contracts, you're still into the ES24s for the next 4 days. Okay, so anybody who's trading options on futures, they're still trading the ones with only 4 days left. Okay, and then 5 days out, then you actually start going into the new contract dates. So heads up on that in today's trading. So basically, what you're looking at now, since this is automatically switching over, you really need to come down here to the ES25s, uh, H25s right there. You can go right here. Okay. And look for your open interest on those to get to find out where price might actually rotate to. 6150. See this 1800 contracts right here. So there's going to be a call wall at the 6150s on these H25s, and so be very mindful. That's 4 days out. So heads up on that. There's a call wall at the 6150s. Above that, then we're probably going into some sort of gamma squeeze situation. So even going up to the 6125s in today's session is likely. So be very mindful of that. We'll go down here and look real quick. And if you get through the 61.25s, the next we have a big one at 61.75 and then the 6,200. So it's a heads up on that. 6,200 is the main uh, target for potential push. And since we are potentially, crossing above the 6,100 early on this morning because of the contract row. So heads up on that. So 6,200 is likely a very, very possible likelihood setting up in this week's session. So heads up on that. Similar situation here on the NQs this morning. Okay. Now, if you were to take from this last swing low right here, add yourself a regression line from that point to this swing low here. This is the current trend we're in. Extend to the right. Okay, you see what we're doing here? We're gapping up right above this trend right here. So heads up on that into the new contract. So this gives me a little warning early on this morning. Okay, that's giving me a little warning early on this morning. The contracts are going right above that trend line. We're not gapping up away from it. So heads up on that. Or if we see any type of early weakness, we might want to be net short on the Qs. So let's definitely keep that in mind. I was looking in my last weekend video here that we might potentially be in a weekly exhaustion area. It looked like Friday we pushed up into this area and we are finding resistance there Friday. We're currently trying to push up into that again. So heads up on that as well here on the Qs early on this morning. Okay, into that area. Uh, so heads up on that. It would, but this here is our current anchor GWAP for the current week. Heads up on that. So, anything above the 531, you should be looking net long in this market above 531, looking net long in this market. And if you go back on the smaller time frame on the ESs, we zoom right in here. That's not ESs and Qs. And if we zoom in real close here on the 1 hour, you see how we're pushing up away from that. Okay, so we found some resistance up in this area on the Qs Friday. Okay, so let's be very mindful of that situation. The new contracts are suggesting that we're pushing on the bullish side of even trend early on this morning. The Russell's not showing quite as much bullishness here. So if you take the low of the move here on the 2 hour, add a regression line, all you need is 2 points on the downside here. Okay. As you can see, extend to the right. That was supposed to be our upside trend. Higher lows, higher low uptrend. That's where we should have been headed on the Russell. Okay, but instead we were failing to come down. So, what can we say from that? So we got this outside candle right there, regression. So we're currently in a downtrend on the Russell. Anchor it on that push there. That was a failed push. Extend to the right. So heads up on that. Early on this morning, the Russell ready. Okay, and we're into March 25s as well. So we're even getting a gap up this morning, but the Russell is still, even with the gap up, technically in a downtrend. So heads up on that. So even with the gap up on the new contracts, we're still in that downtrend scenario here on the Russell. So be mindful of that. If you go over the IWM, uh, we're down here, potential exhaustion low, but just be very mindful of that scenario there. It's still not looking quite as rosy So the higher low scenario off this trend line is in greater jeopardy here on the Russell early on this morning, in my opinion, of coming down and putting a double bottom. It's more likely that we're going to put a double bottom on the Russell, in my opinion. So let's definitely keep that on watch in today's session. Things to watch this morning: Palantir is being added to the Nasdaq, the Qs. Okay, so heads up on that. It's already on Nasdaq, but it's being added to the Qs. So heads up on that this morning. Yeah, so that is bullish. We are gapping up this morning on Palantir. MSTR is also being added to the Qs. It's gapping up this morning as well. Be very mindful of that scenario. Not a lot of other things are happening. We do have a gap up on Tesla. So, I had mentioned in the last video that we had a potential exhaustion high based on Friday's price action, but we are gapping up this morning on that. So be very mindful of that. So if we just start accepting prices below the, you know, here's our anchored view app from the Sunday night. For the bearish case, we want to stay 440.80 or lower for the bearish case. Uh, so let's definitely keep that on watch. We did it gap. This is looking more bullish than bearish for the next push up. If you look out here into the weekly here, uh, I was thinking that this area right here might act as resistance for a potential reset after this massive move up. It does not have to give us that at all. Does not have to give us that. And actually, if you go with your regression line right there, it's just as likely that we come up, into this next zone on channel zone, and which would be pushing the $500 mark. So heads up on that. The momentum is strong on Tesla, so we could be actually be pushing for the $500 mark. And China retail was horrible overnight, over the weekend. You would think for this to continue that you're gonna have to start seeing some really positive data coming out of China to sustain these lofty areas, but we'll see how it plays out. I mean, that bad news out of China, I'd be really nervous trying to hold Tesla to the long side here. But good luck with that. So despite having a little bit of weakness into Friday on the Qs, okay, you see how on the daily here we had buyers coming into semiconductors here. So heads up on that. We had positive buying coming in, potential positive buying coming in semiconductors for this week. So that is giving us, Nvidia was what was driving us down Friday, but semis themselves were showing rotation into semiconductors. So we have to be very mindful here that the downside move here in NVIDIA is quite suspect. So be very mindful of that. Early on this morning, we are coming down here, potentially breaking a critical support. Um, so we have to definitely keep that look on that. Where's the 1 hour here? So yeah, we're coming right back down into the support zone here on NVIDIA early on this morning. So that's our canary in the coal mine for the day. They have got to come in here. It does look like if this thing starts to lose the support area, the 131.80-ish, if we were to start losing that, it could be a very quick move down into the 116 area. Okay, the potential one, you know, you know, 119, 116 area could happen quite quickly. So definitely everything's looking bearish here on the video early on this morning. Go down 15 minutes. We are below. So basically we need to see an early bid sustained over 133.75, 77. We need to start seeing an early bid trying to push back on the bullish side here on the video. So let's definitely keep this watch going into 9:30. This is probably our most important watch to see if there any buyers are going to show up in the video early on this morning. One trade idea that I do want to point out here, uh, we might have a potential buy the dip on AMD. So let's definitely keep this one on watch here. If you put your regression line on here, as of Friday, they brought us down right into, so that's a second touch of this trend line to the downside here on AMD. So heads up on that. You would be buying a falling knife, so you have to be mindful of that. So, um, definitely keep that on watch with the potential target. See, so that would be the high right there. You'd be looking for, we're seeing that relative weak strength in the 70s there Friday. Yeah, see there, see that downtrend there, crossing over that. Basically, you want to be holding above that trend line at all times. So, you know, really quick the risk reward. You know where you're wrong. If this is turns out to be a bad trade and it continues to break down here. But I don't really want to do that because I mean, what's going on with Nvidia is very concerning. We could just fall completely out of bed today. Nvidia is down here, really threatening some critical supports to kick off the week. So be very mindful of that. Semis could very well be out of favor. Uh, so Nvidia is really going to decide how today plays out here. We're right down here at very critical supports here on Nvidia. So heads up on that. See, I went from here uh, to here. That's our trend. We're below that trend. Very critical supports here. You go on a weekly uh, on Nvidia. You see what's going on here. We're right down here into that critical support area here on this pattern here on Nvidia. Losing this, like I said, could very easily be a very rapid descent in the markets. So heads up on that. And I'm very worried about the Tesla trade. I think you're just nuts to be trying to chase up here. Absolutely nuts to try to chase this pattern. So be very mindful of that. I would be, yeah, see, we lost. Yeah, see, this is a bearish pattern kicking off today here on Tesla potentially. Heads up on that. Like I said, if we were to happen to, if we can stay under the 440.50, you know, this range, in my opinion, is the range you would want to be looking to the potential short side. So be very mindful. Basically, if we lose this opening print, the Sunday opening print here, if we start losing that early on in the session, I actually might start taking a short position in Tesla. So heads up on that. Uh, you know, for the back test of the trend. Here's our trend down here, looking for the move back down to the 422 and then possibly all the way down to 417. 422 potentially, and then maybe all the way down to the 415, 417. Okay, heads up on that. Those are very possible. And realizing the China data was so bad, something to definitely keep in the back of your mind. Because, for China, Tesla to be having this unprecedented move, these unprecedented valuations, it's got to be firing at all cylinders. So, you know, what's happening in the retail in China, you know, this is going to have a big drag on their earnings. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind. Thanks a lot.